welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Peter Counter and I'm the editor-in-chief of FindBiometrics, which recently reported on the Identiverse conference in Colorado. Our own Doug OGorden was on the show floor at the event, speaking to the leaders in biometrics and identity, and that's why on this special episode of ID Talk, he interviews OGorden Burris, Senior Director of Product Market Strategy for the Public Sector at Socure. Burris starts off by highlighting Socure's unique graph-based approach to identity verification, before digging into how the downturn in markets affects the business of preventing fraud. He goes on to detail how the IDV boom that we've seen over the past few years has affected Socure, and he concludes by arguing for the responsibility of vendors and their customers to put transparency and consent first when dealing with users' identity. Socure is leading the charge for digital identity in the public sector, and Burris is a great speaker on the topic, so let's get straight to the interview. Here is FindBiometrics' Doug OGorden in conversation with Socure's OGorden Burris, recorded live at Identiverse.
Hi FindBiometrics listeners, Doug OGorden here. I'm at Identiverse 2022, and I'm with OGorden Burris, who's with Socure. He's the
Senior Director for Product Market Strategy for Public Sector.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how's the show?
The show's been absolutely fantastic. A lot of diverse perspectives being presented this year, and really the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into what we're seeing evolving in the market today.
Sure. And what are you showcasing here? What is Socure showcasing at Identiverse, and what have been some of the highlights so far?
Yeah, so with Socure, we're talking about really our graph-defined approach to identity verification, which really allows us to help maximize auto approvals and minimize fraud risk overall for our customers, also while reducing friction. Additionally, I have the pleasure of speaking on a panel today where we evaluate whether or not the recent debacle around facial recognition is going to have an adverse impact on identity verification overall. And so with that, we're really going to explore, kind of what led us to this moment and what do we see is looking forward as it relates to the usage of the technology.
Yeah, it's kind of facial recognition today with the sessions. There's a lot of facial recognition sessions on this third day of the show. So this year we've seen a major demand and growth for identity and biometrics in especially air travel, hospitality, and retail sectors, as well as hybrid workplace security. What are the vertical markets that Socure is seeing as the new traction markets for 2022? Where are you seeing the growth?
So we view identity really as critical infrastructure overall, right? And it's something that should be prioritized across all markets. Now, as markets continue to shift along with consumer behaviors, we also see that there's growth in a number of different types of use cases for the solutions that exist today. For an example, when markets are downtrending, in particular, you typically will see a rise in fraud attacks, which then gives way to the need for more accurate identity verification overall. A lot of this was made bare very recently when the Senate Select Committee for the coronavirus crisis highlighted that during the course of the pandemic there was over $163 billion worth of unemployment and insurance fraud that took place, a lot of it stemming from identity verification challenges overall. So notably for Socure, one of the areas that we're looking to tackle is helping state and federal agencies and the public sector market, along with a number of customers across various commercial markets as well, combat some of the systemic challenges that we continue to see with identity verification. We know that the usage of manual reviews, knowledge-based authentication, document-centric verification, and what would be over-reliance on credit data is really, it is imprecise and it's unreliable ultimately, and it's something that needs to change. And so when we look to what we're doing in public sector, we view it in particular, we view it as our civic duty to help increase equitable access to digital services overall. In striving to do that, we're not even taking just this is something that could be applied just to public sector, whether you're talking to a government agency or an enterprise overall in a commercial market, there's kind of this recognition that something has to be done to change the game overall. Like we have to kind of stop relying on these outdated technologies and chart a new course for them in particular. And so that's something that we're locked in from a mission standpoint to help achieve. And we strive to be the first company to help eliminate identity fraud off the internet, and it's something that we're working aggressively towards.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, all the old sleepy stuff isn't working anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right. The past few years, we've also seen soaring popularity in contactless biometrics, onboarding, and IDV technology, and the emergence of mobile ID. How have recent trends affected your company, and what do you see as your major differentiator in this current landscape?
So, it's interesting to see, the advent of new technology or, enhancements to technology and how that, impacts what would be the user journey or the customer life cycle overall. What I'll say is that, even though there's new pieces that are coming into focus, there's still a lot that we have to get right that hasn't been necessarily solved. So, one of the things I was talking about was the over-reliance on credit data for the purpose of identity verification in particular. There's over 35% of the country today are effectively locked out, or they're unable to apply for traditional credit. And with an over-reliance on credit data in particular, you're leaving them out of the system, the ecosystem in particular. One thing that we pride ourselves on at Socure is being able to verify really what would be those populations that are traditionally left out of the system, right? So independent of, background, socioeconomic class, race, gender, et cetera, we go further and deeper in being able to verify those individuals and bring them into the forefront and more of a kind of hypothetical exercise that we've been doing based on the work that we've been doing with a number of our customers is that if you were to apply our approach to the financial industry in particular, you could almost more than double the amount of individuals who are being brought into the system that are traditionally left out. So while there is, yes, a lot of talk on, where things may be going, I always like to try to take a step back and say we still have a lot of work to do on some of the basics that haven't been solved. And, with what we're bringing to market here at Socure, I definitely think it's a great opportunity for organizations to really change their dynamics internally and chart a new course.
Because you're a public sector government guy, this will be a good question to ask you. The next one. With the increasing regulations around privacy and high-profile controversies affecting public perception around biometrics and identity, there's a widespread notion that education is key for continued success in our industry. How does your organization approach educating users about the safe, ethical use of biometrics for identity?
So first and foremost, it starts with transparency, right? Anyone who is working in this space or anyone who is supporting public sector in particular, it's incumbent on them to have transparency in their practices and how they're using technologies and what the purpose is behind them. Same thing can be said of any organization that is acquiring these services. Ultimately, having that level of transparency with the public is necessary. Else you have a situation where you have kind of this this backlash that comes when new technology gets introduced. And it's also important for those of us in this space to be very clear what we mean in terms of the types of technologies that we're using, right? Whether or not we're using biometrics for the purpose of facial verification or doing that one-to-one match, or if we're using it for the purpose of doing a one-to-many match, right? Each one of those have their place and they have specific use cases that give rise to them, but when you start to conflate the usage of them in any ecosystem, that is what erodes public trust ultimately. And then, to wrap it up, what I would say is that when you're looking at the public sector or any, public-facing service in particular, you have to recognize that, consumer choice is ultimately what should drive a lot of decision-making there. And so folks shouldn't have to necessarily be forced into doing things that they would otherwise be uncomfortable with. They should always have an option in order to how they would, verify or prove who they are ultimately, right? And so as you're looking at the types of tools or technologies that might be deployed, whether it be biometrics or others, it's a question of, is it opt-in, opt-out type conversation? And then what do you do in the event that they do opt out, right? And how do you strengthen your program overall? And is there, even the possibility that you can passively verify them, which is something a lot of legacy solutions today can't do, and they're beholden to what would be some of the biometrics in particular. And so when you're able to find solutions like what we're able to do with Socure that can passively verify someone with a high degree of accuracy without the over-reliance on biometrics, we evaluate it as more of an additional signal, if you will, in managing identity and fraud risk. You're able to have basically a more powerful solution for the public, which is able to drive kind of a seamless integration between what would be that overall trust, transparency, and the security and user experience.
And you make it mobile, touchless, and frictionless, and they don't even know it's happening, and that's what's going to win.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Well, awesome. I will be at your panel today.
Fantastic.
And thank you for your time right now, but hope you have a great rest of your show.
All right. Thanks for talking to me, Doug.
Cheers.
All right.
And so concludes our conversation with Jordan Burris, Senior Director of Product Market Strategy for Public Sector at Socure. Learn more about the topics in this episode by visiting Socure.com. And for more identity expert interviews from Identiverse, stay posted to FindBiometrics.com. Thank you to Jordan for participating in this episode, and thank you to Doug OGorden for conducting the interview. Our podcast theme music is by Logomrad. I have been your host, Peter Counter. Thank you for listening to the ID Talk podcast.